Take advantage of sample edits. I cannot stress enough. Absolutely abuse the fact that an editor will do work for you for free. I can explain it in 1,000 different ways, and I'm probably going to explain it in a handful of them in this video, but I can't say it enough that you should really take advantage of sample edits. But anyway, hello storytellers, welcome to Bound by Words. My name is Madii. If we haven't met yet, I am a freelance editor and fantasy writer. My Instagram and website are always down below. If you need a free sample edit, I actually offer them as well. But one of the biggest reasons why I tell people that they should take advantage of sample edits, because there is this stigma that if you have an editor do an edit for you, like a sample edit, a little trial thing, that you have to agree to have them edit your book unless you have like a list of reasons why you don't like them, and that's not true at all. The editor and author relationship is super important. Even as a professional one, you want somebody who, one, you trust, but also somebody that you like communicating with, that you know will take good care of your book. So the only way to really know that, especially if this is your first book or you haven't had them edit something for you before, is through a sample edit. It's a little tough when it comes to editing because the edits themselves are probably going to be a little bit rough, you know, sitting down and seeing like little errors probably don't bother people as much, like if there's a period out of place or you needed a comma or something like slipped its way into quotation marks. But like when it gets to the point of like deleting words because of repetition or rewriting things because it's confusing, when you start to see more of those red marks, it's gonna be a little bit hard. But it's important that even when the edits themselves are frustrating or disheartening, that you like your editor and you trust them and you're okay with the fact that they are recommending this. That process is hard enough on its own without adding any extra stress. So the purpose of sample edits, and I will say really quick first, if you're not familiar with professional edits, you can't get a sample edit for every type of edit, and not all editors offer them, but I think all editors should. The most common type of sample edits are for copy edits, because that's a highly technical kind of edit. My cat is super distracting me right now. But it is a highly technical kind of edit that involves, you know, punctuation and spacing and formatting and pure like syntax and grammar errors. Most copy editors will also highlight anything that is repetitive or unclear, or every editor should highlight a plot hole if they find it, you know? And the other type of edit that you will see sample edits for is a manuscript critique, and that is because an editor is going through your work line by line and they're leaving notes about, you know, character development or communication or consistency. They're leaving feedback like, you know, you might have used a word a few times in a row, or you might say said too much, those kinds of things. But when it comes to larger scale edits like developmental edits, it's hard to do a sample edit of that because I can't accurately tell you what kinds of things I'm going to need to change or make comments on, or, you know, suggestions from just a small portion of your book. Because this is something editors do for free, a sample edit is usually only a couple pages long at most, like 1 to 2 pages, just so you can get an idea of what their editing looks like. But that's not the only purpose of a sample edit. But I wanted to throw out there before we delve into the why they're important and why you should definitely abuse the fact that you can get them, that you can't get them for everything. Copy edits, I definitely recommend it. You know, manuscript critiques or reviews, if they offer it, I would definitely recommend it. If they offer a sample edit, that's probably like a good chance to just take advantage of it. So the biggest purpose for a sample edit is for you to review their work. You want to look at the manuscript and you want to say, like, are they addressing enough? Are they not addressing enough? One of the reasons it's good to get more than one sample edit is because you can send the same 2 pages or 1 page to 2 or 3 different editors, and, you know, maybe one editor caught some mistakes that the other two didn't. And then you know that that one editor might have a little bit more training or more of a natural eye. So it's really good to have an opportunity to review their work. Even if you're only getting like 1 sample edit from somebody, you have the chance to sit down and see what kind of changes they're going to make to your manuscript. Because every author is going to have different concerns. Your biggest concern might be word choice, your biggest concern might be syntax. So I like to do, whenever I do edits, is I will actually edit somebody's complete first chapter or first section of their book, and then I will send it back and I will ask them for review. And the reason I do this is because when I started very early on, I did an edit for somebody, and I was always taught, you know, like the editor code of honor is like do no harm, because this is people's creative work and they did the research and they're the experts and they're the professionals, and we are just making it clean and pretty and perfect for publication. That's an editor's purpose. So I had somebody that I had just done the bare minimum of like mechanical edits, if it was a true error, if it was punctuation, if the formatting was wrong. And she had given me the feedback that she would have liked to see more edits, that she would have liked me to address some of the repetitive wording, or, you know, just mark when something might have sounded a little bit out of place or unnatural. And there were some places that I marked, you know, if it really stood out, I wouldn't have just left it there without saying anything, but instead of doing a suggested edit, I might leave a comment and say, you know, this is a little bit ambiguous for a reader. So she gave me the feedback that she wanted a lot more. And somebody very shortly after her, I gave them probably not as in-depth of an edit as I did the first woman. The second person, I gave them a little bit lighter, but, you know, not the bare minimum, and she gave me the feedback that I had changed way too much and it had drastically overwhelmed her. So I like to do the first chapter now and send it back to the author and say, is this in line with your concerns with your book? Do you feel like I made enough changes or not enough changes? Because almost always there can be more changes made, and it's not that anybody's writing really needs it, it's that everything can be improved. Part of my editing certificate, we were literally editing books that are classics, that are famous, that were published, you know, I don't even know how long ago. My final was Fahrenheit 451. They wanted us to edit that book for improvement. There's always something small that can be tweaked like that. So you want to make sure that you have an editor who is addressing your concerns, but also not overwhelming you. Not only are you reviewing their work and getting a good sense of, you know, if they'll work with you and if they're adaptable or not, but you're dipping your toes into communication with them. You're getting to see what it's going to be like to do those check-ins, to, you know, get your manuscript back. Some editors will say, you send it to me, and then I tell you when I give it back, and that's it. Some editors will say, I can give you updates every so often. You can message me, you know, on my professional accounts if you want to check in. I'll reach out if I have any questions. I started doing recently, and I feel like a lot of authors really appreciate this, weekly check-ins, because a lot of novels, it's going to take more than a week to edit. You go through it multiple times. So on whatever day of the week that you choose, or, you know, I think default Monday if you don't pick, I will send you on Monday an email saying, this is how far I got on your book. These are the things that I'm seeing that I'm addressing. If I have any questions or concerns, just so you know that I am actively there and present. The editing stage itself can be a little bit stressful for authors because you give somebody your book and then it's gone and you don't get to like hear about it until they're done, which is why I like the weekly check-ins and then getting that feedback after the first chapter. I think that's really important, and sample edits are a good way to sort of just implement that everywhere. Even if they don't do a first chapter check-in, you're able to say with that sample edit, like, would you be able to go in this direction? Or why did you make so many changes? Or why, you know, did you only fix the punctuation? Is that the type of copy edit you do? And you can get a sense of, you know, when they email you back, what their tone and attitude is, because you want somebody that you get along with. Now we're going to talk about other ways to abuse them. You definitely want to get them. Never feel bad. As an editor, I encourage you to get sample edits, even if you're not 100% ready to edit, because a lot of editors book months and months in advance. So ideally you should have a book written, because you have to write it and then self-edit it really before you get a professional edit, especially professional edit that will offer a sample edit. So for developmental edits, you know, I need a rougher draft for that. I need a draft that you want bigger changes to. But for copy edits, you should be close to done with the book by then. A copy edit is like when you think the book is perfect and you're ready to publish it, you give it to me and I make sure everything else is like squared away and clean, and then I give it back to you for more revisions. It's very close to the end of the process. But no matter where you are in that process, I definitely recommend getting sample edits, because you will learn more about the writing process as you do that. Now, I wouldn't recommend getting sample edits if you're not planning on professionally edit it, because I think that crosses the line of taking advantage of something into being a little bit of a jerk. But even if you're months away from editing, you want to start thinking about who you want your editor to be now. So you can get different sample edits from different editors, and you can get an idea of, you know, how their tones are different, and then when you get that feedback from them, it could help you clean up the rest of your manuscript a little bit more. You look at the first 2 pages, and you're like, okay, they cited here that, like, I used this phrase like 2 or 3 times in just these 2 pages and it needed removed, and that might make you more aware of repetitive language in the future. Or maybe they cited somewhere that you spelled your protagonist's name like 2 different ways, which hopefully that doesn't happen with your book, but if that happens, then you'll know to do like a word search on whatever the incorrect spelling is to make sure that that didn't leak its way anywhere else in your book. You'll also get a sense of, you know, some common grammatical errors that you make. It's kind of funny that author voice that we talk about, what comes with it is like a common type of syntax. It's one of the reasons why we have like authors that we are comfortable reading and we know that we enjoy their books no matter what the topic's on because they describe things in a way that's enjoyable. Well, whenever we're editing, you can really tell that the same editors will make like the same mistakes or use the same clunky wording over and over again. So getting a sample edit will help you be more aware of those in your book. But let's say that you're ready to book and edit. So you don't want really the review, you just want to interview somebody for your editing process. That's what a sample edit is. A sample edit is your opportunity to interview an editor to see if they are a good fit. It sometimes doesn't feel like that, I think, because there is this like sort of supply and demand issue that we're going to talk about a little bit later between authors and editors. But as the author, you're in control. You're picking the editor, you're making sure they're up to your standards, and you know, you're choosing who you want to work with, so don't let anyone else guilt you into it. You want to like make that informed choice from more than one person. And I will say as an editor, if I do a sample edit for somebody and they come to me and they say, you know, I chose to go with somebody else, one, I'm not going to be hurt by that. I wish you the best in your publishing journey, but it also gives me the opportunity to ask in a professional way, like, why did you choose somebody else, so that I can learn how to improve as an editor. I will say, personal plug, I've never had anyone do that, so if you want a sample edit, my website's in the description below. Maybe like the video while you're down there, that would be pretty cool. But you might run into more than one editor that they might have the exact same price point, but they have like different services they offer. For example, just a line edit versus a copy edit. Maybe you want a sample edit of each so that you can see exactly how they're different side by side from the same editor, or you know, maybe one editor offers a line edit and the other offers a copy edit. Maybe you have two editors that both offer a copy edit for the same price, but you know, one says that they'll do like the technical grammar and syntax and everything, and the other one says that they will also build and make you a style sheet. Maybe you want to get a sample edit from each of those so that you can see exactly what a style sheet is and if it's going to be useful for you. Another reason getting sample edits from different editors is beneficial is because you'll notice that they will make different changes. There are some things that cut and dry if you're using like the Chicago Manual of Style, which is recommended for novels in most areas, definitely in the US and Canada, and honestly I'm pretty sure the UK. The Chicago Manual of Style is pretty standard for creative writing. It is a reference book. It is a reference book of what to change. So you might have somebody who really strongly adheres to that style guide, and then you might have somebody who might not make as many changes, but it might not be that they're not adhering to the style guide. The style guide does leave a lot of room for if the author prefers this, because you as the author are in control. The language in the reference book is written like this. It'll say like the Chicago style prefers this and this and this unless the author has reasoning otherwise. Like that's all throughout the book. So they might have made less changes, but that might be because they are letting your voice shine through a little bit more, and maybe you want the stricter changes, maybe you want the less strict changes. Maybe you notice that one of those editors you got a sample edit from caught 2 or 3 errors that the other 3 or 4 people you asked for samples from didn't, and then you know that that person might be a better match for you. So lastly, we want to talk about the wide range of supply and demand when it comes to editors, and it's one of the reasons why getting a sample edit is so intimidating. And we're talking about this that way you can, you know, be aware of it and be more easily able to like push through and really be assertive for yourself and get those sample edits that you need. But basically, if an editor is new or has a smaller platform, their rates might be cheaper and their schedule might be more open, and they are pining for authors to find them. So these editors really want you to come and find them and book their service. I mean, everyone wants you to book their service, but there's an extra oomph on this edge of the scale. And then on the other side, there are editors who are booked months and months in advance who might get multiple requests for edits and they can only take a few, so they'll pick their like favorite projects or the writers with the best or cleanest writing, or even the writers that have, you know, the most potential to make sales. That way they can put their name on something a little bit bigger, and they are not really as concerned with getting people to book their services because they're already booked out and they already have, you know, more people than they can take on. And there are a bunch of spots that you can fit in between these two places. And, you know, I will say that newer editors who need clients are generally a little bit cheaper, and more experienced editors and people who are booked out are generally a little bit more expensive. There's definitely like more of a middle ground where you'll find somebody who they only charge what the EFA recommends even though they're booked out because they're fair. You'll also find people on the lower end who charge more than they should because, you know, you gotta value yourself, and sometimes you just have to put your foot down. But there is a different spot on this line that every editor falls, and there's also a different spot on this line that is best for you as an author. So don't feel like because you asked for a sample edit from somebody who's booked months in advance and they gave it to you and they're willing to take your project, you have to accept. If you are given the option between two people and you know one of them is more experienced and booked out and one of them is, you know, less experienced, maybe does it on the side because they work something else full time and you get along better with them or you enjoyed their sample edit better, it's the best way to pick somebody other than, you know, the content on their website. It is a more efficient way to pick a better match for you than just choosing somebody's like website and their aesthetic or judging it based off of an email interaction, which are all things we do. You know, you want to take up cues wherever you can along the way when you're finding an editor. But it can also be a little bit intimidating if you are working with an editor who really needs the projects or is really trying to convince you to work with them. It can be a little bit hard to say no. If you get a sample edit and you're really just not happy with it and the editor comes back and they're like, but I'll do it for cheaper, if you're not happy with the sample edit, don't let them guilt you. You can very simply explain that like you appreciate the time that they took to do the sample edit, but it's not a good fit for you and that's the only reason you're choosing something else. It doesn't have to be like any ill will, and if somebody is consistently nagging you or bothering you about signing up for an edit, they're probably not a good person to have edit your book anyway. You want somebody who's going to be professional and respect your boundaries, so don't let anybody intimidate you. I honestly don't think that happens super often. It's one of those things where like when you hear an editor horror story, it's like the worst story ever, and thinking about it like gives you cold sweats or anxiety or whatever, but there's generally an infinite amount of editors. I feel like it's such a saturated field, so if you have a bad experience with a sample edit, you don't want to risk having a bad experience with your whole book. Always remember, you're the author, your name's going on the book, your say matters. Every editor anyway, all of the copy edit stuff, they're all suggestions. You do them with like track changes and stuff, so I can send an edit to somebody with, you know, 100 changes and they can reject 80 of them and only accept 20 of them because it's your book, your name's gonna be on it, it can look like whatever you want. And in the same vein, you can hire whoever you want, and the best way to get to know somebody more and make those decisions is through sample edits. So take advantage of them, really. Take advantage of every resource you can when you're writing, especially if it's free. And sample edits should be free. If somebody offers a paid sample edit, I would definitely look around to some other people before you go back to them because free sample edits are pretty standard in the industry and most people do them. I actually have only ever seen 1 or 2 people try to charge for an edit, like a sample edit, a small thing, and I just don't think it's very ethical. It doesn't take very long, and just like I said, it's like an interview process. You don't pay somebody whenever you interview them. You don't pay for their time for that because, you know, you're trying to just see if it's a good fit or not. So with that, if you need a sample edit from me or a first chapter review, which is something I also do, my website is down below. Consider subscribing while you're down there. I post writing related videos twice a week, and I will see you next time.